So we're getting the record predictions, right? We talked about USA Today's ceilings and floors, and what's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario for NFL teams? And today it was ESPN's turn. So you go to ESPN.com, and they have an article that explains their feelings and their calculations have led to, this is the best case scenario for a team. This is the worst case scenario for a team. If you're wondering about the Panthers, ceiling 10-7, floor 5-12.
It's a pretty wide range.
It is. I mean,
I see arguments for both.
I was going to say it's probably a more realistic ceiling and floor than a lot give, because if you feel like you can predict most NFL teams to within 2 or 3 games, tell me, and I think we can find a way to make quite a bit of money. A 5-game, 5-win stretch where 5 to 10, that makes a little bit more sense. If you look at the Saints, 4 wins to 9 wins. You look at the Buccaneers, 7 wins to 12 wins. And you see some overlap there, right? Like if their floor is 7 wins and the Panthers' ceiling is 10 wins, there's multiple different ways where the Panthers can finish above the Bucs, even if their range is obviously predicting a better season for the Buccaneers. So that's where the Panthers are, and you can go look up every team you want, right? You can go look up go as crazy as you want to get. But here's where it gets funny. They also added the biggest X factor. Called it the biggest X factor. That's dramatic, right? And I'll give you some examples. The biggest X factor for the Falcons, right? Falcons, ceiling 11 wins, floor 5 wins. Biggest X factor, tight end Kyle Pitts. Look at the Minnesota Vikings, ceiling 11 wins, floor 5 wins. Biggest X factor, the run game. Well, I got a rookie quarterback. Run game would probably help. Makes a little bit of sense. I'll give you one more here. Green Bay Packers, ceiling 12 wins, floor 6 wins. Biggest X factor, defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, because he's coming up from continuing to establish himself from his college coaching days, right? And he's maybe didn't put together the best resume in the world last year, and maybe the offense needs a little help. All right, the defensive coordinator makes sense. These are very specific things that you can look at and say, all right, I guess, yeah, their season could ride on it. Shall we get to the Carolina Panthers? Carolina Panthers, ceiling 10 wins, floor 5 wins. Biggest X factor, the defense. That's it. It just says the defense.
Bruh. Just one side of the football.
Just 50% of it. That side of the game. New Orleans Saints, ceiling 9, floor 4 wins. Biggest X factor, skill position players' health.
That's oddly specific.
Because Olave's been hurt a bunch, and Alvin Kamara is getting older,
yeah.
and it's so specific. Panthers, ceiling 10 wins, floor 5 wins. Biggest X factor, everybody that tries to stop the other team from scoring. Derrick Brown, J.C. Horn, Christian Roseboom, Nick Scorton, all of them.
Trevor Wallace.
Shamar Bartholomew.
You're an X factor.
The defense is their X factor. Defensive coaching staff, sure, we'll include you. Defensive depth, yup. Front 7, secondary, safeties, all of it. The question in the explanation is, can the league's worst defense in 2024 become a top 20 unit? That's the X factor. That's the X factor. How unbelievable is it that you can have an entire half of football be the X factor? It's I'm trying to think of an apt analogy. I have a 4.5-year-old son at home. It'd be as if we're like trying to play baseball, and someone's like, "Oh, great! Can you guys play catch?" Yeah, we can. He can't throw. It's like 50% of it, right? It's like, well, then I don't know if I'd be that confident in saying you're good at playing catch if he can't. You're not sure he can throw. The Panthers, like their win-loss, their ceiling and floor is right along with some of these other teams, right? It's close to the Falcons. It's right there with like I said, there's overlap with the Bucks. It's similar to the Arizona Cardinals, but they all have like these little tiny things to worry about. Meanwhile, the Panthers are like, yeah, everybody on that side of the locker room. And here's the worst part about it. It probably is easier to name the people on defense I'm not worried about than it is to name the defensive players that I am at least a little concerned with. Right? You get to that point where it's I could sit here and list a whole bunch of names, or I could name the 5 that I'm confident in, and then you'll just assume everybody else is worrisome, right? Because if you look at the defense, there are a few like bets being had. And I said this last year going into their offseason, and I say it this year coming into to this preseason. So this is a thing that happens during a rebuild. There's only so many resources to go around. Right? There's only so much room under the cap. There's only so much there are only so many draft picks that you can make. There's only so many resources to go around. So at certain places, you're going to have to make a bet on a player. Right? So they looked around and said, all right, we're going to spend some money on a big money free agent safety. They went and got Javon Merrick. We're going to spend 2 day 2 draft picks on edge rushers. They went and got Nick Scott and Princely Umanmielen. In making their decisions to put their resources there, they also said, we're going to take a pretty big bet on Michael Jackson as a every play tested a whole bunch corner opposite of J.C. Horn. And they said, you know what, we're going to probably take a big bet on guys like Shaw Smith-Wade and Damani Richardson, who we didn't invest in a lot last year, but showed enough signs that they can provide the depth at important positions. Same is true with linebacker. Right? Now we, meaning from the outside, we're very surprised. Actually, I shouldn't speak for all of us. I was very surprised the day before training camp when Josie Jewell was released. And they went through the explanation, the context of the head injuries and the concussion protocol that he was still in. But I was still surprised. I don't think the Panthers were surprised there. Right? Because they were in communication and they knew if he was passing protocol or not, and they went through the entire offseason with him and everything else. So the fact that their linebackers are a point of concern to me and could be seen as an X factor because they're part of the defense is part of the Panthers saying like, no, actually Roseboom and Wallace we're confident in, and maybe a player like Radigan or whoever they have with depth pieces they're taking a bet on. Because you can't solve everything. You only have so much going on. And where does that leave you? Well, it leaves you with the world's funniest X factor. Like the Chiefs, their X factor, rookie left tackle Josh Simmons. The Chargers X factor, the rushing offense. Dallas has a pretty good one. Dallas is pretty funny. Brian Schottenheimer. Their head coach is their X factor. All right, I get you. But most teams they limited like the pivot point. The whole season comes down to they limited it to like one guy. For the Giants, can left tackle Andrew Thomas play well enough to protect their quarterback to get the ball to Malik Neighbors, right? Their biggest X factor is left tackle Andrew Thomas. For the Eagles, their biggest X factor is running back Saquon Barkley. He's coming off 480 touches. Can he hold up for another season? Like there's X factors that are that nitty-gritty, and they looked at the Panthers and circled half the roster and said, if those guys can play well.
These 25 guys.
That's what they're doing. I don't know if it's impressive that somehow they got to a 10-win ceiling with half the roster as a big X factor, or if it's terrifying that then they're not 100% confident that an entire half of football has anything they can depend on. Goodness gracious, that is hilarious. If I had to give an X factor, it's the secondary. If I had to give an X factor, it more specifically, free safety and second corner. I think those guys are going to have a lot. If they hold up, it makes everyone else's job easier, and then you can have an on-ramp for the rookies to figure it out. Like it's part of the defense, so I guess I'm agreeing with them in some way. But it's the secondary not named Horn and Merrick is the thing that I think the season hinges on most obviously, outside of the play of Bryce Young, because if we were being real, I think like 28 of the 32 teams, if ESPN put out an honest X factor, it would be the quarterback play. That's just kind of how it goes in the NFL. Outside of that, though, free safety, off corner, second corner, whatever you want to call him. Not J.C. Horn corner. And if J.C. Horn gets hurt, both corners.